We have our Pong game set up and ready to code. We already have all of our backdrops, including the start screen, the player 1 instruction screen, player 2 instruction screen, the player 1 win screen, the player 2 win screen, and the play screen. We also have all of our sprites. We have the ball sprite, the player 1 paddle, player 2 paddle, and then my buttons, the player 1 button, the player 2 button, easy button, normal button, and the hard button. Our first task is to set up the way that our game interacts from screen to screen. We're going to do that by going to the stage settings and then to the code. Whenever we start any program, we always want to set our variables to the default values. In this case, we want our player 1 score to be 0, our player 2 score to be 0, and our ball speed to be 0. Next, we want to navigate the user to our start screen. So we say switch backdrop to start screen. After that, we start setting up conditions for when we may switch from one screen to the other. In my case, I want to go to the backdrop of player 1 wins if my player 1 score is greater than 10. This is the player 1 victory condition. I've gone ahead and I have right-clicked on this to add a comment to let myself know what this is supposed to do. It's very useful to add comments to your code in order to ensure that you remember what your intention was with the code, and so that if you go back later you can make adjustments. It's easier to figure it out if you have notes. I've also set up another if condition here for my second player to win. If the player 2 score is greater than 10, I'm also going to switch my backdrop to the player 2 win screen. Great! The other thing we want to do is make sure that our buttons and our different sprites show up only on the screens they're supposed to show up on. For example, my player 1 button here should only show up when it is on the start screen. This is how we do that. First, when the green flag is clicked, I want to ensure that it is in the location I expect it to be in. So I'm always going to tell it to go to this location in case it does get accidentally dragged away or moved unintentionally. When I click the green flag, it should go back to my intended spot. And that's what I have set here. Again, it's always nice to add comments. Place the button in the start position. You can grab the handle to condense your comments to make it easier. Now, I always want to check my backdrop. In this case, there is a thing, a round circular backdrop block that allows me to check that. If I grab that, you can see that it is below here. There's a way to check the backdrop number. If I click on the right to the left of this, there is a backdrop number that appears on my screen, and I actually can see that and utilize that value to make sure I have the right one. I can either refer to a backdrop by its number or by its name. In case you didn't know, all your stage backdrops have numbers. There's a number in the upper left-hand corner that allows you to refer to it by number instead of just by its name. That's what we're referring to in this code. In this case, my ball, I only want it to show when the backdrop name is play screen. If I were to say this as a number, this would be number 6. I used an if-else statement here so that it would hide it if it is not on that screen. Since it only belongs on that screen, I can utilize this code to make that happen. If I press the green button here, I did the same thing here for my player 1 paddle. You can drag the code from one of these to the other if they apply the same way. I dragged that code over to my player 1 paddle and also to my player 2 paddle, And now my player 1 button, of course, is going to say start screen and show on the start screen and hide on any other screen. Same with my player 2. It also only shows on the start screen, hides on the other. In this case, I only want these instructions to show on my player 1 backdrop. I'm going to go to my stages and make sure that my player 1 instructions is named the same way. You will have to copy by selecting all and then pressing Command C on the Mac or Control C on a Window or in a Chromebook, and then go to the code and paste that inside. I want this to also occur on my other sprites, so I'm going to go ahead and click and drag and drop them so that this also occurs on my player 1 screen. Same with this one. We want to copy that code over. Now we need to actually be able to get to those screens by clicking on these sprites. So another thing I'm going to set in my player 1 button, in the code of my player 1 button, I'm going to create the event of when this sprite is clicked. And in there, I can say switch to background, player 1 instructions. And there we have it. On our easy and our normal and our hard buttons, we can do a similar thing where we say when this sprite is clicked, we want to take this variable of ball speed to make this easy, set it to some low number, and then again switch the backdrop to the play screen. This is how you navigate from screen to screen and set up all of your buttons to work properly. You'll want to copy these into the other sprites and then test to make sure that everything works exactly as you have planned. If something does not work properly, try to go over all of the various code that you have to detect what is going wrong. That's it for this part. Next, we'll have the action of the ball and the paddles.